Welcome to The Holistic Truth, sponsored by Nutritional Frontiers. Nutritional Frontiers is a Pittsburgh-based professional nutraceutical company founded by Dr. James Weiner and Jamie Dorley, and they are celebrating their 10th anniversary. All of the Nutritional Frontiers formulations are 100% guaranteed for purity and potency and follow the highest quality control standards today, including CGMP manufacturing facilities, certificates of analysis, and third-party testing. The Holistic Truth. Want the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
And now, with the whole truth and nothing but the truth, here's Jamie Dorley.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Holistic Truth, your free classroom on the air for natural healing. At The Holistic Truth, you get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You get this show live. We are globally live, worldwide live, 4 days per week. You can pick us up globally on khbradio.com. That's khbradio.com. And you can pick us up in the Western PA, Pittsburgh, tri-state area just by going to khb.com. Or you can also pick us up on the radio, 94.1 FM and 620 on the AM dial. We are live 4 days a week. And you can pick us up Mondays and Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Mondays and Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Tuesday and Thursday, Early Bird Special. The Early Bird does get the worm. Check us out at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday and Thursday. So 4 days a week live. If you have any questions you'd like to call into the show, you can do so at 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. And I'm your host, Jamie Dorley. I normally do have special guests on the show or co-host. So if we're not able to get to the call, I apologize. You can always email us, and you can do so at nutritionalfrontiers.com. The show is sponsored, of course, by Nutritional Frontiers, where we're breaking through nutritional boundaries. Nutritional Frontiers was founded 10 years ago by Dr. James Weiner and myself, of course, in the Pittsburgh area. And with Dr. Weiner, we founded Nutritional Frontiers because we wanted a company that was Pittsburgh-based, that had a focus on quality, integrity, research, and service. And by quality, every single formulation is made in a GMP-certified manufacturing facility. And now more than ever, folks, you need to make sure you're getting the products and the formulations from the right people, because we stand behind the products 100% for purity and potency. So if you buy Nutritional Frontiers products from Nutritional Frontiers or from the Weiner Wellness Center or from any of our great healthcare professionals locally or throughout the U.S., everything comes with a money-back guarantee. If you don't like the product for any reason, just let them know and bring it back to the place that you picked it up, and they'll give you full credit, and we'll take care of it. Now, the difference with Nutritional Frontiers and a lot of other companies is that you can buy products from anywhere. You can go to the Giant Eagle or Mass Market or vitamin stores, and there's an abundance of products out there. But when you start sifting through the products, what we tend to see is that there's not a lot of research ingredients. So we use over 30 different trademark, patented research ingredients. What that means is that we have specific ingredients that we pay for that comes with a tremendous amount of research and education for really two main things. One is safety, and two is efficacy. For example, we've been using the BioCell for over 10 years now. BioCell is a patented, trademarked research type 2 collagen matrix that is excellent for joints and for skin. It's part of our HA Plus and our Joint Wellness Solutions program. So when we look at Nutritional Frontiers, we use the patented trademarked ingredients. They have all the research behind them, so we know how much is enough. And with the Weiner Wellness Center, Doc in the last 50 years and myself in the last 27 years have found what ingredients work well. We put those ingredients together at the right dosages and the right combinations and ratios. And then really what separates us again is the delivery systems, because you got to provide delivery systems that, one, maximize the absorbency, right? You got to get the absorbency into the blood. You got to maximize it into the cell and then excrete any of the waste products. So it has to absorb really well, and it has to be compliant. If your client or yourself is not going to do a powder, then you need to have other options. So we have more chewables, powders, liquids that you can find at most companies, and we have a special guest on today, and we're going to talk about some of these formulas because probably the most challenging group of people to work with out there is the children. And we really pride ourselves on the service. We do over 100 days per year in office or in classroom where we do events, and these can be, events where we sponsor a luncheon for doctors and staff, or it could be a professional training event. We also do the wellness weeks and wellness weekends and wellness events. So we're in over 100 days per year. We're in some type of educational event for the community. So we take a lot of pride in that. If there's anything that you'd like us to do locally, you can email me at info@nutritionalfrontiers.com. Or if there's anything you like, tell somebody else. And I'd like to let everyone know we, unfortunately, Dr. Weiner passed away at the end of last year. And the good news is that, Doc's wishes were that the Weiner Wellness Center would continue in operation, and not only continue what he was doing, but even grow, if that's possible, to a bigger and better place. We just met last week, and we secured dates for the Weiner Wellness Weeks. There'll be 4 Weiner Wellness Weeks in 2018, and we'll have dates released real soon for you on those. And the great thing is we still have the staff down there. I went down there for some chiropractic work for a pinched nerve last week. So we still have Dr. Gideon Orbach. He's been my chiropractor for years. And he also works with my kids. And that's a key, with the doctors that we're working with, is that if they're working with kids, folks, they're doing some great work. And also Dr. Joseph Honigman, who is a chiropractor, muscle therapist. It has a master's in public health. They still have Adam down there, who does a lot of trigger point work and myofascial release, and Dan McPherson, who does ISIRA, which is the bioenergetics. So if you need an appointment, please call the Weiner Wellness Center at 412-922-WELL. That's 412-922-9355. So we have a very special guest on the show today. You probably heard this guy for years on a radio show previously when he worked for Dr. Marty Gallagher, and he was one of his main chiropractors, nutritionists, and I heard him on the radio so much I felt like I knew him when I met him. He's the founder and the clinical director of the Innovative Family Wellness Center. And he's also the founder and also the director of Dr. Noah's Ark, which is Autism Recovery Center. And it has 2 locations. One is in Wexford, PA, and the other one's right over the line in Boardman, Ohio. He graduated locally from Cal University, and he has a BS degree in athletic training, similar to my background. And he went on to Logan College of Chiropractic and got a degree there from not only in biology, but also a doctor in chiropractic. He's one of the few chiropractors I know in PA that's a chiropractor and a licensed medical acupuncturist. So, you look at it, not only the bachelor's degree, but in addition to the chiropractic degree, acupuncture makes him very, very unique. He has advanced studies, so he's able to do what we call genetically based treatments for autism, ADD, ADHD, and related disorders. He does use a lot of Nutritional Frontiers formulas, and he uses some other companies too. So, we're going to talk about some of the patients that he's been working with, and want everyone to know that, he's doing some incredible work for kids and adults, because all these kids that have autism grow up to be, teenagers and then adults, and they need care too. So I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Noah Erickson. Welcome to the show, Doc. How you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Jamie. I'm doing really well, and thanks so much for having me on. It's nice to be back on the airways here, and I thought we could kick off today's program, just as you mentioned moments ago, about children. It's something near and dear to my heart. Most of us know our flagship company, Innovative Family Wellness, but we have a sub-company of this here called Dr. Noah's Ark, and that branch of the practice is a special practice, very unique, that focuses on the biomedical or bionutritional treatment for children with autism spectrum disorder. So I'd like to kind of highlight that this morning, talk about kids. And by the way, also, as you were mentioning with your supplement company, Nutritional Frontiers, the high-quality vitamins, the purification standards, highlight some of those really important vitamins that I use from Nutritional Frontiers that have a terrific success in lowering inflammation. A lot of these kiddos come in and they have the gut on fire, brain on fire. I'd like to talk a little bit today about mitochondrial disorders. Sometimes the kids on the spectrum suffer from energy deep in the cell. We can talk about that. And I'd also like to talk about something that really inspires me about children, and that is getting children to speak again. And there's some neat products there that I've used from Nutritional Frontiers that can really highlight some of the work I do, but also shine a spotlight on some of the high-quality nutritional products that you guys sell.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic, and the reason we wanted to have you on the show is because, one is you've been working well with myself and Nutritional Frontiers, and, when you were on the radio all those years, like I said, I felt like I knew you, and then when we finally met, it was like, wow, this guy is so special because he's doing things that are so unique in the community. You know, I talked to my team last week and said we're going to have Dr. Erickson on the show. They were so excited because, you know, we look to, you know, continue to partner up with people that are speaking the same language as us. And, you know, I know we work closely with the Wine and Wellness Center. However, you know, they have their specialties there, but they may not have the autism program that I know you have. So it's great that we partner up with people that are speaking the same language and that are going to help synergize each other because, you know, you got to admit probably, right? Now what happens is a person will have a kid with maybe not even autism, maybe, you know, delayed response, maybe ADHD, or any type of, I hate the labels they put, but any type of issues they may be having. They go to somebody like, say, me 10 years ago that was doing nutritional consults, and they start asking, well, how many people have you worked with this? And, you know, generally I found, Dr. No, is that the parents may know a little more than I did because I wasn't specializing in that. And there's a lot of pressure on the parents and the healthcare professional of, you know, it's my kid, I got to make sure you have experience and it's safe. So one thing I want to let everyone know is that you've been doing this for, over 10 years working with children, and you got a very unique program that you work with hundreds, if not thousands, of children. And first thing is the program's very safe, and second, it's effective. So how long have you been doing this with the kids specifically?
Sure. I've been doing this now for over 13 years, and as you mentioned with the chiropractic licensure, I also practice something called craniosacral therapy, which a lot of the moms and dads out there are looking for a safe, natural way to influence a children's nervous system to help impact their immune system, focus, eliminate headaches. And in this field of study, we often recall that the nerves we think of as painful from the spine, but the nerves in this case actually go to the organs and the glands. So many children come and they can't focus because their eyes aren't tracking. So we pay close attention to the upper part of their spine, as that's the chiropractic connection hardwired to eyes and vision. Many of these kiddos have problems with digestion or asthma, and in craniosacral therapy, we look to free up those areas of the spine to allow the proper nerve signals to go to those organs and glands. So that's one component. The second component I do is a lot of nutritional work. And what we'd like to do today is highlight some cases as we go in the program, but also I'm going to tell you a little bit here about a special offer that we're going to do for some of the testing. So before I get into that, I just want to tell everybody my personal belief of autism spectrum disorder is this. I believe we have an underlying genetic predisposition, and it's a multitude of factors, kind of like an accident where all the wrong variables and factors sort of come to play at one moment in time. So I find this to be a load of environmental toxicity, underlying food sensitivity, immunological deficits and challenge primarily in the gastrointestinal system, and we also find a lot of times the kiddos have problems in something called the mitochondrial. In other words, there's a power plant, like a spark plug inside your cells that are not working well. So that's my personal belief. Yes, I work in close conjunction with the parents, the diet, and I fully believe in occupational therapy, early interventional, physical therapy, but a lot of my kids come with expressive speech apraxic. In other words, they're not able to speak. These kids are exceedingly bright. My personal belief is on the autism spectrum disorder, these children access areas of their brain and have thinking and thought patterns that we could only, dream to, the way they categorize and analyze and sort of, filtrate information. But the way I see it is they often have issues with processing, and speech is one of those. So when I highlight some of the cases later, Jamie, I definitely want to tell you about some of the cases where we've had children who have been unable to speak despite speech therapy and occupational and physical therapy and wonderful services from early intervention. And we'll talk to you about some of the genetic tests, some of the products used. I'm looking forward to highlighting some of those cases as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know you're doing some tremendous work. And oftentimes when people listen to the show, they may only be able to listen to a few minutes. So let's let everyone know if they want to contact your office and make an appointment, how can they do so?
Sure thing. Okay, well, we're on the web, and that's innovativefamilywellness.com. That's innovativefamilywellness.com. My name is Dr. Noah Erickson, and our phone number here is 877-533-9993. That's 877-533-9993. And again, we have the subdivision of Innovative Family Wellness known as Dr. Noah's Ark. So that's often one of those terms that parents find me, they're up late at night, they can't sleep, they're Googling, biomedical treatments for autism, natural treatments for ADD, drug-free approaches for ADHD, how can I get my kid to sleep? So all those questions, and they often will cross-reference and find our website, drnoahsark.com. But again, that stands for Autism Recovery Center. And it's pretty interesting, Jamie, when I put together all this, it sort of was, realized to me later on that Dr. Noah's Ark, DNA, is pretty neat. Those, initials are in there, and I talk a lot about DNA testing. So I've been testing this way for well over 10 years using the nutrigenomics, nutrition testing, food allergies and such, and also genetics. So we'll talk a whole bunch about some SNPs and some neat cases again where I highlight using the genetics and ways to kind of get around these roadblocks for speech and for motor functions, sensory disorder, and behavior.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, folks, if you want to make an appointment out there, if you have anybody in your family or yourself, right, that needs help with any ADD, ADHD, autism, and any related disorders at all, it doesn't have to be just, infants. It could be kids, grade school, toddlers. It could be teenagers. It could be even, adults, because I find that when you get into the causes, like you had mentioned, environmental toxins, food toxicity, immunoglobulin support, so the GI support, and mitochondrial resuscitation, when you look at those four components, that is without a doubt some of the most important underlying causes. And then when you find out what's causing this, the results can be dramatic. So, folks, I highly recommend you call Dr. Noah team at 877-533-9993. That's 877-533-9993. I think the challenge sometimes is that, the parents are coming in, they read something online and say, okay, it's gluten, right? Well, I got my kid off gluten, and they got some results, but not all of them. What I like to say is that it's a gluten-containing foods, right? Just because it's gluten-free, it could still be a cookie. And I think, people are doing a good job with maybe adjusting their diet. But one thing we got to realize, it's not a punishment, right? We're trying to help these people out. And, the amount of toxicity that we're looking at is higher than ever. So what do you see as far as, this new term, in our field at least, new term in nutrigenomics and epigenomics, these biotoxins? You had mentioned gut health and brain and the mitochondria. So what role is the biotoxins like yeast and candida, bacteria, Lyme? What roles are you seeing those play in some of these diseases?
All right. Well, I'm from the South Hills area, and I actually used to race BMX bike out at the South Park, and then later.
All right, now you're talking my language.
So imagine pedaling your bike, and you don't have to be on a BMX track. Imagine pedaling your bike, and all of a sudden a stick, which has probably happened to all of us, jumps up and your chain pops, and you come to a screeching halt and flip over your handlebars. And years ago, I have a couple, battle scars that still proclaim those uneventful days for me there, where I wiped out and, got banged up. Likewise, inside your body, there's something we kind of categorically call the methylation cycle. It's actually about 5 different gears turning. One is the folate cycle, so it takes folic acid and makes it something very bioavailable. Another one is the cycle that processes an inflammatory amino acid called homocysteine. That later becomes a super powerful protective antioxidant called glutathione. There's another cycle that is so important for kids, and it balances 2 brain chemicals. One's called dopamine and one's called serotonin. And that is for mood and sleep, focus, behavior, and support. There's another kind of gear on this whole bicycle we're talking about here, almost like a 10-speed bike with all the sprockets. And the other gear linked up this is how well we detoxify from our kidneys. So toxic compounds like ammonia or nitrites have to be processed as air. And then this 5th sprocket on this old 10-speed bicycle would be the mitochondrial. So as all these things start working, could you imagine if a child had an encounter with an environmental toxin? They can be heavy metals, aluminum, arsenic, lead, titanium in the air, foods, water, pesticides. That's analogous to that stick jumping up into the sprocket chain of your bicycle and derailing you in a hurry. That can shut down the ability to make happy chemicals like serotonin and melatonin later on. That can shut down this process called detox. So we call it the bucket or garbage principle, Jamie. I've heard you mention this before on radio too, where the bucket's filling up. And what do I mean by that? Ammonia's backing up, chemicals are backing up, biotoxins are backing up, and they actually have names, right? They're inflammatory chemicals like TNF-alpha and NF-kappa B that cause neuronal damage. So what I strive to do here is, first of all, identify the factors. You mentioned foods and, the imbalance and the toxicity coming from them. So we often look for food allergies, because food allergies can create this leaky gut syndrome and this gut-brain situation, whereas foods, undigested, can cross the digestive tract, infiltrate, cross the blood-brain barrier, and cause major problems with stimming, toe walking, hand slapping. It can take away speech. It can cause an entire opioid response. So many of my patients know day one, we recommend starting off with no MSG, no monosodium glutamate, colors, dyes, preservatives, BHT, things like that. We also take them immediately off of dairy and gluten to lower the opioid response. But something unique about our clinic is we test for underlying food sensitivities. We also test for heavy metals. And I did want to mention that special offer for anybody who calls by the end of today. We'd like to give $100 off to really encourage you. Does your child have toxicity? Is your child food sensitive? So we're offering $100 off both the urine toxic elements test to identify this, and also $100 off the food sensitivity test. So yes, indeed, first of all, the food you eat is primarily what I have to focus on, and then we'll talk about some testing.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, folks, there you have it. You're able to capitalize, and, we realize that a lot of the, what we call natural healing therapies, there's a little bit of outlay of money. However, if you knew you can get the results, what would it be worth to a person or a parent? I got 3 kids myself, and anytime something happens to the kids, the first thing is I say, I wish it would happen to me, and I would do anything to help them out. So, very generous offer by Dr. Noah Erickson here to give you a $100 credit off some of the testing that he's providing. And all you need to do is call 877-533-9993. I want to remind everyone you listen to The Holistic Truth, your free class from on the air for natural healing. I'm your host, Jamie Dorley, with very special guest, Dr. Noah Erickson. He's the founder and clinical director of the Innovative Family Wellness Center and Dr. Noah's ARC, Autism Recovery Center. The great thing is, folks, he has 2 locations, one in Wexford, PA, and it's right off of, I go up 279, I get off at the 910 exit. You're right behind T-Bones. I mean, you couldn't find an easier place to go to. So very easy to find the location. He has free parking right outside and a real nice office, and he is accepting new patients. All you need to do is call him to schedule a time. He's willing to give you $100 credit off some of the testing he's offering. So the Holistic Truth that we have here is available 4 days a week, and we are live, globally live, Dr. Erickson. So I know you got a lot of friends overseas and throughout the U.S., so I'm going to have you on the show periodically and definitely at least on a monthly basis. Have them listen in. All you have to do is go to khbradio.com. That's khbradio.com. They can also pick us up locally on the AM dial 620 and 94.1 on the FM dial. This show is sponsored by Nutritional Frontiers, where we're breaking through nutritional boundaries with a focus on quality, integrity, research, and service. I'd like to let everyone know that we are going to continue the Wine and Wellness Weeks. March Madness is right around the corner. We'll keep you posted with those dates real soon. So I'd like to jump right back into it, Dr. Erickson. So we're looking at these environmental factors. You talk about testing. Could you just maybe give us a little tease, a little taste of which test you're referring to? Because there's an overwhelming amount of tests out there, and I think it becomes very confusing for the parents. Everyone's on a budget. So I know you've been doing this for 13 years, and I've been doing this about the same on this level. And I find there's a lot of great testing companies out there. So after all your research, what have you found to be the most important tests that you need to run on every single patient that comes in for these challenges?
All right. First of all, we'll say let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So first of all, as I mentioned, a food sensitivity test looking for nearly 100 different food allergens. As I mentioned before, we know there's an opioid response, right? We have an opioid crisis here in this region of our country right now with so many people taking these drugs to feel good. Well, realize, guys, your kids may have brain fog, inability to focus, difficulty concentrating, chronic headaches because of food sensitivity triggering a similar response. So we do food sensitivity testing. Number two, we have to look at the immune system. Again, my personal interpretation of autism spectrum disorder after doing this for well over a decade is there's a major component to the digestion. We know a lot of the work by Dr. Andrew Wakefield identifies there's a leaky gut, an inflamed gut. So we test that. We culture the stool for unhealthy bacteria, right? When I've been doing this now well over a decade, I've been talking about probiotics and bone broth and kefir and specialized diets to heal the gut, like the specific carbohydrate diet, the GAPS diet. So by looking at the stool analysis, we understand how well you're breaking down, digesting, and absorbing your food. We also look at a very critical test of metabolism called an organic acid test. This is a really interesting test helping to understand imbalances in brain chemicals. When I mentioned those gears before, I centralize and focus on one gear that balances something called serotonin, the happy, feel-good chemical, and dopamine. That chemical is so critical for speech. And the organic acid test gives metabolic interpretation of those chemicals. It also looks for something called SIBO. And adults, you know this too. Indigestion, bloating, maladies with problems of food motility. We always find these kiddos have something in their gut, parasitical, fungal, because so many of these kids have antibiotics. And Jamie, you were mentioning that how many parents are up and Googling and looking at these terms. There's something out there that I love to talk about. I talk about it pots, pans, and pandas. In fact, I'm speaking this Thursday evening with Dr. Anthony Kovach, a local pediatrician, colleague, and friend of mine at the Northland Library at 6:30, and we're talking about pandas. But again, I call it pots, pans, and pandas. All right, there's something we have to realize. If you get an infection in your throat, you can have a sore throat. If your child gets an infection called streptococcal infection, that infection can cause an inflammatory destruction to the brain. Remember back in the day when you heard about scarlet fever, rheumatic fever, you heard about
absolutely
kind of, infections attacking the organs. When we find out that these kids have infections based on testing, we have to go after this neurological inflammatory response. We say gut on fire, brain on fire. The final test that we often do on day one is a genetics test. And I'm going to be talking here in just a moment about a case and about the products, but we look at gene SNPs, little fragments of your DNA that tell us you have a roadblock. I'm located here right off Interstate 79 in Wexford. Imagine shooting up 79 coming out of town from the Pittsburgh Steelers Heinz Stadium there, and you're on 79, and all of a sudden there's a traffic accident and both lanes are blocked. You can't maybe get through to the office, but there's a road that you can take that gets a roundabout, maybe a Route 19, you come to the office. Well, likewise, if we identify your child has gene SNPs or blockages to make brain fortifying nutrients like folic acid and methyl B12, we can get around that blockage. So we do genetics testing with saliva and blood to determine this. So those are kind of the starting points for testing. Again, think of it this way. Look at the gut microbiome and food allergies for underlying nutritional and allergenic issues. Check out the cell function with organic acid test and look at their genes as an underlying predisposing factor.
Well, that's fantastic. So these tests are all available to be done in your office, and you had mentioned saliva and there's blood tests. So very safe and easy for the parents to bring the kids in, get the testing done, and then you set up a protocol based specifically on that person. I think that's the great thing. When I was reading your bio, even though I've known you so long, I said, I want to read up on Dr. Nolan and learn a little more. And when I was looking through the specialization in epigenetics and nutrigenomics, I was thinking, oh, God, Dr. Jeff Bland's coming back, right? Let me study up on the biochemistry here. And I thought it was great in the way you provided in such a simple to easy to learn, terms. And I really appreciate that. I'm sure the parents do also. So I think that's what really those words, nutrigenomics, is how food can change, genes, and what's the environment of the gene in that type of food environment, or environmental toxicity, or food, or any globulin, whatever it may be. So I know that you are customizing their program based specifically on what they're coming in with due to your testing. So there's no one-size-fits-all. However, I know there's a few formulations that you really are your bread and butter, so to say, and I know you use a couple key ones from Nutritional Frontiers, and most important, I think, are probably the Noramax and the probiotics. So Can you talk about what role those play in addressing some of these underlying causes?
Absolutely. So let's look first of all here at some of the basics. Most of these kids are nutrient depleted, right? They're eating refined grains, simple sugars, carbohydrates, and nutrition that's not fortifying their brain. So most of my patients, day one, I can comfortably put them on the Frontier Multi. There's also a chewable, and I'm just thrilled, and this is something everyone needs to know about your company, Jamie. You're putting the proper type of folic acid in, the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. I was really pleased to see in the Frontier Multi-capsule form the OPC antioxidants, right? If I claim that the gut's on fire and the brain on fire, I need a fire extinguisher. Well, that's exactly what happens. And I'll be highlighting, as I said, about mitochondrial, and there's coenzyme Q10 in there. This is a big, big cellular gasoline, high-octane fuel for me. So when I look at this and I see extracts of fruits and vegetables to sort of make up the deficiencies in their diet, that is a no-brainer day one start for almost every child. The other issue I see a lot of times is these kiddos are having major problems with digestion. The Superbiotics 2 at a 50 billion CFU, a high-potency, high-quality, multi-strain probiotic, does very well for most kids to re-inoculate that gut microbiome and to start to crowd out the ugly bugs like E. coli, mycoplasma, staphylococcal. It does a great job. Yes, you mentioned, too, a moment ago, Neuromax. Many of my kiddos come here with speech deficit, stuttering, impairment, expressive speech apraxic. That is one of the best things. And there's some interesting chemicals. Way back in the day, I was known as a Dan doctor, one who used these sort of protocols on more about genetics, right? So in that formula, there's some specific ingredients I really like to highlight, and that's dimethylglycine. It's this kind of fair weather friend detoxifier. It also helps to reinvigorate the cell. And there's some critical things in there to block something called glutamate. I see magnesium and zinc in there. And I can tell everybody after 13 and a half years of doing this, thousands of children, I rarely have encountered a child who has too much magnesium. I've rarely encountered an adult that has too much magnesium. So my old joke is always, I sincerely doubt anyone's eating too much salad, right? It's a rich source of dark green meats and magnesiums and nuts. So anyhow, the magnesium and the zinc help to tone down this excessive glutamate response. And the other thing I can tell you here is when it comes to mitochondrial and when it comes to a kid's palate, I really enjoy using Power Fuel. Most of these kids do have some deficit. Think of this as a brownout day in California. Could you imagine in the middle of the summer, so warm thoughts for everyone here in Pittsburgh, if the power's going down, there's a drain on it, right? Everyone's running their air conditioners, the power's up, it's the middle of the day, everyone's at work, the computers and lights are on in California, and they're having a kind of grid glitch and the power's going down. Well, Power Fuel energizes their little bodies. What do we often talk about in the kids' world? We talk about low tone, muscle flaccidity, issues with sustained energy. Maybe they're playing soccer or swimming, you just don't see the endurance. It helps to address the mitochondrial. So those are a few things that I can tell you I start with. And one interesting thing, and Jamie, when I did radio years ago, I used to say you are to eat, digest, absorb, assimilate, and eliminate in Probzyme. I can tell you when I work with kids, I like liquids, I like powders, I like gummies, I like chewables. And Probzyme has been a godsend for many of these kids who can't break down their foods. They have pancreatic and stomach digestive impairments, and those Pac-Men, as I call them, help to chomp up the food, break down the carbs and proteins and fat, and this helps many kids. So, again, all of this is based on testing, but there's certainly in your line some stellar standouts in my world, and I could go on and on about other products in adults and all sorts of neat things, and cancer and on, but those are the few that I just can tell you have been just wonderful in my pediatric population.
Well, that's fantastic. So I want to go through those formulas because there was quite a tremendous amount of information you provided, and we don't want to shortchange anyone, so let's do a quick review. And I appreciate the compliment because when people looked at our product line, I says, the nice thing is that you get to deal directly with the owners of the company, and sometimes they don't realize the power that can mean, but the difference in working with Nutritional Frontiers is that we are in partnership with our healthcare professionals such as Dr. Erickson and the patients. So we're all in this together. And one of the things we're able to do is we're able to update the formulations based on updates in technology and research. And one of the biggest changes in the last 10 years has been utilization of folate versus folic acid. And the reason being is that you had mentioned methylation. Folic acid plays a tremendous role in methylation. And what happens is, I was meeting with Dr. Marion Hoskell. She's a autism doc out in San Diego, California. She says, look, about 40% of the population is not able to break down folic acid properly in the body. However, the kids with autism, maybe 90 to 99% can't break it down properly. So we have switched over in most of our formulations from regular folic acid to folate. Now, the one formula we couldn't, and I'll let you know why, and I'll let your patients understand why. We're not able to do the folate, the methyl tetrahydrofolate, yet in a liquid form. Once we're able to, we will update the Normax, but we can't do that yet. So the other ingredients are really important, but you get your folate from the multi, from the other formulas such as NODMG. It's in Power Fuel, so it's in other products. We just can't do it yet in the liquid. So you mentioned Frontier Multi. Some of the new updates in the multi is that we've added CoQ10 to it. As you know, Dr. Erickson, from working in the field for all these years, that CoQ10 may be one of the most expensive nutrients out there. So we added CoQ10 to it. We don't want to do just window dressing. So we give a nice dose of CoQ10 in the multivitamin now, because the goal is always to get better results, better compliance, and the best value possible. And we can't just keep taking more product. What we need to do is improve the formulations that we have. Therefore, as a healthcare professional, you get better results. And one of the biggest products that we updated the past year was the Frontier multivitamin. And if you look at some of the updates, you had mentioned the OPCs. We added those right to the formulation, as you had mentioned. You need a good antioxidant to clean up all this oxidative stress. We've gone to all of the minerals from Albion. So when you see TRAACS, T-R-A-A-C-S, that's the true amino acid chelates. Those are actually chemically bonded chelates, not just where you mix the amino acid with the mineral. That's a big difference if you know biochemistry and chemistry. So Albion is a top mineral. So we have all of the patented trademark minerals now in the Frontier Multi. We've gone to all of the activated vitamins and minerals. So things like, magnesium is activated now. Folic acid is the active folate. We've added in CoQ10, 30 milligrams, so a nice good dose to get them in. You look at the other things we put in there, OPC3 that you mentioned. And then red beet powder. There's been a tremendous amount of research on red beet powder for circulation in the past 2 to 3 years. So the nice thing is it's in a base of fruits and veggies, so you're able to get more fruits and veggies inside the multivitamin. So we feel that this multivitamin is second to none in the market, and the reason being is the amount of patented research trademarked ingredients. So it is a complete multi. You don't need to take 3 and 4 other products to get the results you should be getting from one. So the Frontier Multi, what type of dose do you give to a kid? Do you base it on body weight, or how are you basing your dosing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jamie. So I think to kind of illustrate all this, let's talk about a little guy, Anthony, 4 years old, who came to see me over 2 years ago. His mom was from West Virginia and happened to be up late one night Googling and came across the practice and decided to make an appointment. And here's why she was frustrated. She had an older child who was a couple years older, and she said, she was my turnkey child. I did nothing, and she said he was stellar in school, had all of his major milestones, both motor and sensory, was phenomenally behaved. She said he was my great sleeper, and she said, my husband and I said, this is going to be an easy ride. We'll have child number 2, and she was thinking that's what every, child-rearing experience should be like. Mom did all the right things. She had her body checked for heavy metals prior to getting pregnant. She was taking the proper form of folic acid. She was taking omega-3 fish oil. She had normal body weight. She didn't have gestational diabetes. So when we looked at maternal history, she was completely clear. No family history of autism spectrum disorder. So now here we are. We have Anthony, 4 years old, with his older brother, Mark, 6. He's healthy and well. Anthony is sick as can be. He had chronic problems of strep infection with early intervention of multiple antibiotics as a child. He took many drugs like amoxicillin and Ceftin to try to allay the symptoms of the sore throat. Mom also had horrendous problems at night with sleep. She said, my first baby, around 8 o'clock, he'd go down. We'd barely hear him until 5 in the morning when he got up to feed again. She said, this guy, he's a dancing and partying in his crib. Sleep was a major issue now at 4 years old. They want him to go into preschool, and he can barely even feel good in the morning and get up because he hasn't slept at night. Some other things that frustrated her, she took him to the pediatrician. They did a full evaluation, listened to the heart, the lungs, took vitals, ran some general blood chemistry, a CBC, a metabolic, and they said everything looks good. There was no gross infection, no anemia and other pediatric conditions. So he passed with flying colors, nutritional pediatrician. Mom wasn't happy. She took him to a developmental pediatrician here in Pittsburgh, a specialist who ran some other tests and did find he had a low level of vitamin B12 and a low level of vitamin D. That proved to be some help. It did seem to alter the child's mood, so those couple findings were helpful, and there was a slight dietary change. The child went gluten and dairy-free, and that did seem to tone down the child's eczema. But mom pushes further, as many parents do. They get a brain MRI looking for neurological abnormalities. The brain MRI comes from the pediatric neurologist up in the Akron area, completely normal. She's frustrated. She reads about more issues and goes to see a GI specialist for chronic constipation. She used to tease and said, Dr. Noah, she said, my 4-year-old child looks like he's about to give birth. He bloats, he gets pregnant. She said he's brain foggy. And she said, bizarre as this seems, whenever he has a bowel movement, he seems to clear up. The pediatrician said everyone's patterns are different and try Miralax. Mom was even more frustrated at that point. So at this point, could you imagine being a parent you've taken to the pediatrician, a developmental pediatrician, a neurologist, a gastroenterologist? She had him in early intervention, speech, and OT, all of which proved some benefit. In fact, the occupational therapist said, hey, what do you expect? We looked over the family history. Dad was a late walker. And speech said, what do you expect? We found out that mom was a late talker. She said, I'm not buying this. Something's wrong with my child. We came to see this entire profile this way. Day number 1, we did a complete digestive stool analysis. How well does this child break down their foods, digest, absorb, and assimilate? We also looked at a genetics panel, finding out there was a deficit in making and balancing a chemical called dopamine, and as we mentioned before, with B12 and folic acid issues. MTRR and MTHFR genes were screaming on this test. In other words, block, the road was blocked. We have a major problem, right? The other thing we did, as I mentioned before, Jamie, is an organic acid test. So here's how I designed this plan using the Nutritional Frontiers. Based on the stool test, there were markers of inflammation and markers that were showing that we can't break down and digest the food. Probezyme. It comes in cherry. It comes in grape. It comes in fruit punch. I always tease these kids. I say, hey, I feel like I'm somebody, at a stand in the summer selling a snow cone. Would you like it in cherry, grape, or fruit punch? Kids love that. Mom was given that to him. She said immediately his pregnant belly went down. She said, finally, my child would sit down and pass a normal bowel movement. I mentioned this product before, and you mentioned again, love it, Frontier Multi. Genetic SNP testing came back as an MTR, MTHFR gene mutation. That signifies me to go ahead and put them on the right types of B vitamins, the bioactive forms of folate and B12. And because the markers on the organic acid test showed massive inflammation, the OPCs in there shut down inflammation. You asked about dosage. For a 4-year-old, I did 1 capsule, open up, mix with a smoothie, mix with pudding, mix with tapioca, whatever it is, get it into these kids, 1 capsule breakfast and 1 capsule with lunch. The other thing we did that was just critical in here is Neuromax. I dosed them at a teaspoon twice a day with breakfast and lunch, and this was phenomenal. Mom said it's like my child's brain fog cleared, almost as a veil lifted off his head. She said, I could see the spark in him. She said, all of a sudden, his little lips began to try to formulate words. Based on some further diagnostic testing and I worked up, and also some gene snips, I put him on a really cool product called Brain Boost. I know I haven't mentioned that before, but it has phosphatidylserine and some other really interesting ingredients that kind of jazz up or make neurons talk to one another. So I felt very confident moving forward with 1 capsule daily breakfast of Brain Boost. And then to get his energy back so he could run in the backyard with his older brother, play soccer, keep up with the team, I did 1/3 of a scoop of Power Fuel. And and that gave him the energy, the metabolic spark plug. And what's dramatic about this case, Jamie, is here we are now at the 6-month mark. She comes back and tells me, my child is now speaking in sentences. This is phenomenal. This is real life happening. My child now sits down and passes a normal formed stool. No more Miralax, no more extra fiber, no more straining on the commode and ending up with this extreme bloated belly and a brain on fire. The other interesting thing, when I reevaluated the 1-year mark, the chronic streptococcal infections were going away. So I mentioned before, POTS and PANS and PANDAS. This kid, I diagnosed him with pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder. It's an inflammatory condition. So what I did is used an interesting formula in a powder form called X-Flame. X-Flame with curcumin and ginger and some of the other high-grade anti-inflammatories shuts down gut inflammation, shuts down brain inflammation, and curcumin is one of the best epigenetic signaling markers out there. How did I move forward with that test with confidence? I looked at his gene marker called catechol-O-methyltransferase. COMT gene is extremely important, and because curcumin's an active methyl donor, I felt comfortable doing a 1/4 of a scoop right before bed, and what a difference that makes. Gut on fire, brain on fire. We're talking about a kid who would wake up and grouse at his brother, want to hit his brother, want to tell his mother that he didn't have to go to school, want to scream back at the teacher sometimes and kick and fuss and fight. This is completely different. So here we are now, well over a year out from this case. This child is mainstreamed into school, learning and speaking in full sentences, no longer has these winter strep infections that seem to go on for months, and normal bowel movements by taking careful analysis of genetics testing, nutritional and metabolic testing, looking at these products, understanding how and when to use them, and having great care for these children using a natural, holistic, drug-free approach. So these small miracles can certainly happen. In fact, they do every week here in the office.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that's the beauty of your program, Dr. Erickson, is that the customization. I mean, without doing all that testing, without having the experience and the clinical confidence, it'd be really challenging for you to be able to customize a program at that level. I mean, I'm hearing the multivitamin being customized, customizing Brain Boost, you're adding in things like X-Flame to reduce the inflammatory response, because that is the underlying variable that we're all looking at, right? I mean, inflammation response is pretty much tied into any disease, especially diseases such as neurological, affecting the brain and the mood. And then you tie in the gut, and you had mentioned at the beginning of the show, the inflammation from the gut-brain connection. And last year we actually had a seminar series on, that your second brain, the gut's on fire, right? And you had mentioned 2 key, what I call brain, chemicals, or mediators, these neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine. They found there's about 50% of your serotonin levels are in the gut and 50% in the brain. And dopamine, primarily responsible for what? Depression. And dopamine, it's only 5% in the brain, 95% in the gut. So would you agree, Dr. Erickson, that anytime there's a neurological disorder, there's some type of gut connection to the issue?
Yeah, most definitely. I'll tell you an awesome case. Because the services that we offer here are rather unique, we do a lot of Skype and phone consultation. This case goes back about 3 years. We had a 14-year-old female from Georgia who called us just outside of Atlanta. Her mom actually reached out because one of my patients in the Ohio office moved down there to start a new Christian school, ended up meeting this girl through the schooling, and here's what she was having. She was having a major condition, when I said before, POTS, PANS, and PANDAS, called POTS. It's postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome. And what was happening when she was in Bible study or standing in church and it'd be hot and you're standing with your, kind of militant posture, she'd often just drop and she'd literally pass out and fall down right in the pew during church. This girl could run for a very short period of time out in the playground during recess, but had joint pains and stiffness. She wanted to be on the soccer team, but after playing soccer for only a few practices early in the season a couple years ago, debilitating, swollen, bilateral knee pain. She, of course, was checked for juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, found not to be present. She was checked for autoimmune diseases, they passed the flying colors. She also went to see a pediatric physical therapist and completed 12 rounds of physical therapy, strengthening, stretching, icing, anti-inflammatory protocols, and nothing could help her. So I took this case on, and we ran some interesting tests. I ran an adrenal hormone test. Being that she was 14, about 2.5 years prior, she had menarche, in other words, her first period. I was extremely concerned about the health of her hormones, and adrenal function is so common in girls. They're so pressured with school and stress, and the little bodies are changing in so many ways as they go through puberty. We had to look at that level. This could explain the POTS. Adrenal malfunction. Are you tired, shaky, nervous, irritable, confused? Do you get lightheaded from sitting, standing? Do you crave salt, sweets, caffeine, adults, nicotine? This girl was a check plus for almost all those symptoms. The other issue I found in her case is she had a very disturbed microbiome. Bloating, IBS. At the young age of 9, she was diagnosed with a spastic colon and secondary IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And you're right, serotonin is one of the primary transmitters that have to be pushed in the gut. So after getting back all of her tests, doing this again by Skype, sending her test kits out, sending this back, about a month later, we reconvened by Skype and sat down and looked over the test. She was in adrenal fatigue. I used a product, Jamie, from your company called Adrenamax 3. It's a third revision of a fantastic product with some very specific herbs, some very specific blends in there that help to support adrenal function. In the pits of this, we use 2 capsules in the morning with breakfast and 2 at night to help support her adrenaline stress response. You know, this helps many teens with focusing, stamina, concentration, and just to deal with the stressors of their bodies. We often support this plan, too, for many girls who had PCOS. The second thing I did with her is a product by Nutritional Frontiers called Mood Lift. I had her take Mood Lift, 1 capsule 2 times a day with food. And that was a natural source of some magnesium and some ginkgo and vitamin blends like B3 and serotonin support nutrients that helped her brain come back alive. She was having anxiety and panic attacks, partly because she wasn't feeling well, but partly because her adrenals were in a crash mode. We put her on a very highly specific protein supportive diet using the protein super shake to support her amino acids. You know, I find this extremely common in teenage girls. I'm sure boys too, but there's issues over weight. They often skip breakfast. There's a connotation or a stigma about a girl's weight at this age, a very trying time. But they need protein, they need amino acids, they need essential fats. So unfortunately, she was lacking these. So in the morning, we did 2 omega-3Ds with breakfast, extra vitamin D to balance her hormones, extra omega-3s to nourish her glands and her female hormones, and the protein to support her body. So ladies out there, and men as well, if you're concerned this time of year to lose weight, your BMI is too high, you have a diabetes situation going on, you just simply want to get healthy as spring with warmer days like this is certainly coming around, think about this, using protein shakes and the omega blends that we used for this girl from Georgia. So what happened here, at the turn of events, we talked again at the 2-month mark. She was no longer passing out in church. She was able to play a little bit of soccer and have a bit less inflammation. And the exciting thing was she was back in the game of life. She was able to focus and not have anxiety and panic attacks. Then when I followed her up at the 6-month mark, we took another evaluation of her adrenal test, and what's an exciting testimony for Adrenamax 3, the product that we use, her cortisol levels came into perfectly normal balance. What does that feel like and equate like? No more shakiness, nervousness, panic attacks. And what was something else? We put an extra magnesium 300. It's a triple form of magnesium from Nutritional Frontiers and a very helpful formula that rarely has any side effects. The mother was greatly concerned about diarrhea. Not this form. It calmed her nerves. It enabled her to sleep at night. So using products like Adrenamax 3, Magnesium 300, the Super Shake, Mood Lift, we took a girl who was disabled, failed conventional medicine, and just was told, you're a teenager, you're stressed, you're going through menarche, and what do you expect? This is how it should be. It's completely ludicrous. We look at people with functional medicine, natural medicine. That's why, again, before this show closes out, I'd like to extend the offer for both offices, the one here in Wexford and also the one in Boardman, Ohio. You become a new patient. It's $100 off a food sensitivity test and $100 off a screening test for heavy metals. Let's, in this new year, get healthy, view this whole situation of pediatric, adolescent, and teen health differently, and let's step into the 2018 on the right foot.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we want to let everyone know we appreciate Dr. Noah Erickson coming on the show today. We expect to have him on next week again, and then we're going to have a schedule out for the next few months. So excellent job, Dr. Erickson. We appreciate you coming on and sharing your vast amount of education, research, and also all the protocols. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with Dr. Erickson, please call 877-533-9993. Again, 877-533-9993. Let them know you heard on the radio show, and you'll qualify for the $100 discount. Excellent show today. We appreciate it. We look forward to you coming back on future shows. Thanks to all the great listeners out there supporting the show. Thanks to Bill in the studio. Have a great day, and God bless.
You've been listening to The Holistic Truth, sponsored by Nutritional Frontiers, a Pittsburgh-based professional nutraceutical company founded by Dr. James Weiner and Jamie Dorley. Listen again at this same time for The Holistic Truth.